So this is a late 8th, early 7th century prism. It's a chronicle, essentially, from the Neo-Assyrian king Sennacherib, and he's talking about his campaigns. What's interesting about this actually is corroborated by the story that we have a parallel of in 2 Kings 18 and Isaiah 36. And you get a story that is incredibly similar, or at least can be corroborated by the story that we read in Sennacherib. So it says, as to Hezekiah the Jew, and however you want to treat the Judean or the Jew, is Hezekiah, this Jewish person, right? We can't call them Jewish people yet, but it's as to Hezekiah the Jew, he did not submit to my yoke. Remember, Judah is a vassal kingdom at this time. Mm-hmm. Himself I made a prisoner in Jerusalem. So now here's the reference to this Judahite person. Let's call him a Judahite. This Judahite person, King Hezekiah in Jerusalem. This is the late 8th century. They're in Palestine, they're in Canaan, with an external reference, not just a biblical reference, but an external reference from this Neo-Assyrian king. And he says, I made him a prisoner in Jerusalem, his royal residence, like a bird in a cage.
Yeah.
He's talking about a siege. Mm-hmm. He besieged Jerusalem. And he said, I wrapped him up. I reduced his country, and I still increased the tribute and these country presents that are due to me as his overlord, which I impose later upon him beyond the former tribute to be delivered annually. So apparently Hezekiah was already paying tribute as a vassal to the Neo-Assyrians. And now he's because Hezekiah dared to rebel, he's going to impose more on him.
The bill just got bigger.
Yeah, he got bigger. This is your punishment. Hezekiah himself did send to me later to Nineveh, my lordly city, together with 30 talents of gold, 800 talents of silver, precious stones, all kinds of valuable treasures, his own daughters, concubines, male and female musicians. So this is King Sennacherib bragging about, here's what I do to people who rebel against me. I just impose even more tribute, and I besiege them.
And this is coming after, if you're thinking I feel like there's another reference, you may be familiar with the Lachish reliefs as well that portray what Sennacherib did to Lachish, where it's not just I come and I take some money and I leave.
Right.
That shows the sacking of the city that happens. And then Sennacherib turns around to Jerusalem and says, hey, you see what I do? You want to pay the bill, or do you want to walk away today? What do you want to do?
He doesn't say that he sacked Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. What he says is he put it under siege and Hezekiah paid him off. That's what it says. So now if we go into 2 Kings 18.
Yeah, let's do our comparative reading here.
Yeah, we read 2 Kings 18. Let's see what that says, because we might see something that maybe corroborates this. Maybe it's different, maybe it's the same.
Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasuries of the king's house. At that time, Hezekiah stripped the gold from the doors of the temple of the Lord and from the doorposts that King Hezekiah of Judah had overlaid, and gave it to the king of Assyria. So our backstory here getting set up that, yes, confirmation for the tribute payments that had already been in existence. That Hezekiah had been paying off the king here to try to maintain position.
He was already a vassal. And don't miss verse 14. Verse 14 or verse 13, it says that, the Sennacherib was coming up against all these fortified cities, and he went up from Lachish, and Hezekiah went out and he said, I have done wrong. Please withdraw from me. Whatever you impose on me, I will bear. So Hezekiah clearly admits, hey, well, my bad. Sorry, I didn't mean to rebel. I shouldn't have done that. Whatever you ask me to pay, I'm going to pay. And Sennacherib just comes marching on up to Jerusalem. He says, I'm going to make this clear to you. Don't do that again. And he puts the city under siege. And then you get this great encounter that we're told about in a little later, in a few verses later.
And this is the version of the siege that most listeners are probably familiar with. Maybe not
Correct.
so familiar with the I wrote a huge check and you leave me alone version.
Right.
You're familiar with the 2 Kings version in 1935. That very night, the angel of the Lord set out and struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. When morning dawned, they were all dead bodies. Then King Sennacherib of Assyria left, went home, and lived at Nineveh. As he was worshipping in the house of his god Nisroch, his sons killed him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Ararat. His son Esarhaddon succeeded him. So 2 Kings confirms that Sennacherib left, but presents a very different rationale.
Correct.
Similar to the difference in rationale we had just before. Here it's the angel of the Lord did all the killing for them, no mention of payment, and he goes away.
And what we know from the Assyrian records is after Sennacherib was paid off, he broke the siege and went back to Nineveh because a rebellion, a coup had broken out, a civil war, and Sennacherib goes back and was assassinated and was killed in this coup. And so you have one account from the Assyrians that says, yeah, I got what I came for. I got my money. I got increased tribute. Hezekiah paid me off. And I voluntarily left, or maybe not so voluntarily, but it was because of disorder in my own house back home. But the biblical version, of course, is going to read this theologically. It's going to see this as, no, God is at work here. And they're going to add, and the angel came in and killed all of Hezekiah's troops, and that's why he had to go home. And then he got killed there.
Yeah.
So, but what we do have in Isaiah 36 there is that before all that nice ending happened, Hezekiah paid him off.